wanted to misbehave, but we're going to see if it will behave instead today. All right. It's looking good so far. I'm ever hopeful. Excellent. Well, I wanted to come online a little bit early today. Thanks for the nice suggestions about that, and better late than never to figure this out on day 5. But wanted to come on a few minutes earlier just to give everyone a chance to find the live stream. And I'm gonna, for those of you watching on Facebook, anyway, I'm gonna try to get some quick questions here before we start in earnest. And Donald, you've got a good one. Priorities. Is it better to play a section you can play at speed, play everything as slowly as you can play wellish, play everything as quickly as possible, or have a drink and watch Netflix? And I don't know if you're talking specifically about your practice strategies, because we're going to talk a lot about that today, or for the recording. And, everybody's recording is going to be a compromise of some kind. I think we have to accept that, right? That it's never going to be good enough. It's never going to be perfect. I think we've all got a perfectionist streak in us. The one that I put on YouTube was the same way. I wrote the piece, but I'd only had it for a few days by the time I put that up. There are things I would want different. What I would love in your guys' performance recordings is that you play with character. That doesn't mean that it has to be full speed. It certainly doesn't have to be the suggested, quarter equals 120 or whatever. I would love for the tempos to relate to each other. For example, whatever you do, have that relate at least to the... Does it have to be exactly the same? No, but I think if they both have the Violympic spirit, whatever we want to call that, that's good. So I would say to play it at the speed where you can play everything well-ish, not perfectly, and, aim for that character, I think would be perfect. Great to see so many of you joining me here. Really makes it fun for me. If you're on Facebook Live watching with me and you have another question, I'm happy to take a couple more before we really get started. That was part of the idea coming on early. And Lisa, you mentioned you don't have enough experience to modify the music. Any suggestions? If you mean that you're not sure what you can do, what you can't do, I would, for this first time through it, I would just err on the side of making things easier and more manageable for yourself. So, at the end of the assignments, strategies and assignments document that you all should have, I give on the last page, there's Violympic theme alternates. You could, if you take every one of those alternates, it makes the piece easier, right? So, the idea was that by the end of yesterday, the end of day 4, you would have that decided. If you're still on the fence, see if you can decide ASAP today, so that all your work today can be on your final performance version. But I would err on the side of making things more manageable. I keep going back to the sentence that I wrote, the sentence that I thought of when I had this whole idea. I want everybody to reach some this week, but not to be stressed or overwhelmed. I know. Well, Paula, you mentioned this being our our last day, and that it's sad. It is, but it's not quite our last day. So I'll explain in just a second. Great. Well, it is 11 Pacific, and hopefully everyone's found us all right now. So again, an official welcome, everyone on YouTube, everyone on Facebook, or watching afterward, to day 5 of the Violympic Trials. And I want to start today by mentioning that actually this isn't quite our last day, because we're going to have a wrap party I think I've been living in, near Hollywood for too long now, but everything, there's parties, there's after parties, then when you finish a project, there's always a wrap party, right? And so we're going to have that on Tuesday. This coming Tuesday, same time, 11 Pacific. We're going to go a little longer than we have been in these 5 days of training. And I'm not calling that one of the days of the trials, because really the idea of the Violympic Trials was a 1-week challenge, learn the piece in 5 days, record it. So by the time Tuesday comes around, you're going to be done with that, right? You'll have racked up your points if you're doing points. You will have finished your recording your video, and you'll have so much to be proud of. I mean, you already do have so much to be proud of, because I've seen it and heard it in the Facebook group. It's amazing, really inspiring. But by Tuesday, all that's going to be behind you, and so I really don't want to just let that go and let all of you go without bringing everything together. And, yes, I will be announcing the winner of the trials there. I know not everybody's into the whole points thing, but do remember that the one of you who scores the most points gets a free spot in the upcoming Violympics. So that's going to be exciting. But even if you're not doing the points, there are many more reasons to come to that wrap party. It's really going to be a chance to bring everything back together, look at what we covered. There's going to be a special little presentation. I'm going to highlight some of my favorite things that you posted in the group, call a bunch of you out, and to look at how you took the Practice Makes Performance system and put it to use in this Violympic theme over the course of the week. And, then I want to look ahead a little bit and look at how you might keep using the Practice Makes Performance system in your work for the rest of the summer. For me, it's the rest of my life. That's how I work, and I've been so happy working in that way. So it's Tuesday at 11. I'm going to be sending out the email as usual after this afternoon after our session. There will be a clear link there. That one's a little bit different. It's not going to be on Facebook Live. It's not going to be on YouTube. We're going to use Zoom for that, and because places are somewhat limited, I need you to RSVP. So you look in the link in that email, RSVP for that, so that you can come on Tuesday. And yeah, we'll bring everything together. It'll be super fun. If you've been part of this, you definitely don't want to miss it. And I will give details as well about the upcoming Violympics. Of course, I know many of you are interested in those details, so I'll be talking about that as well. Great. Since today is day 5, certainly don't have any new techniques, thank goodness. I'm going to be looking at practice strategies. What can you do in this last day and, continuing into the weekend to make your recording the best it can be and the most fun it can be? Now, here's something that has been really a game changer for my own orchestra auditions. If those of you who have taken orchestra auditions, it's like other kinds of preparation, but it's not. It's a little bit artificial. You got to walk in and play these little sections of music, and this one's in this style, and the next one is, and then you've got like, and then switch. Okay, next, and it's, you got to be ready for all these different styles, and you don't have a lot of time to switch. The strategy that I didn't come up with it, but once I got wise to what the real issues were in taking these auditions, the strategy that I started using, and it was very successful, keywords or thoughts. You might use this already in your personal life or your professional life. Before you do something, take a minute to center, and maybe there is a key word, a key image, a key phrase that comes to mind and helps you find the right focus. Every little section of this piece, starting at the beginning, right? In fact, I'm going to pull it up so that I can refer to rehearsal letters, but you've got a character here, a way of setting the bow, a way of approaching the instrument. A. B. Maybe there's something slightly different I need to think of for... Certainly into C. D if you're doing the octaves. You get the point. Every rehearsal letter, got to switch gears a little bit. There's a new challenge. Even though there's one basic tempo that ties the whole piece together, there are different challenges and different thoughts that may help you to execute, to bring the musical message to your listeners. So, I'm just going to share mine with you. In the beginning, because here's the key, it has to be something that you can write down on the page, but hopefully it's not just a word or a collection of words, right? The most powerful things for our brains are images, right? Stories and images. So the words you write down should call to mind a feeling, a whole, an image or a story, so that in a flash, you're in that place. So for me, I actually, I put top of the mountain. To me that means something. I don't know if it will to you, but top of the mountain, kind of like this background there. The sun's rising on a mountain. Maybe I've climbed the mountain and I'm there by myself with the violin and I can hear the sound echoing. And for me, that's perfect. I put myself there. See what that image does for me. It's a way to approach the instrument. It's an energy. It's a sound, because I can kind of hear it echoing off the canyon walls there. It's a look, whether you want to take this look from the background or whatever. But top of the mountain, that's what that means to me. A, I put opening ceremony. Because for me, I can so clearly, as a kid, watching the Olympics on TV, and I see everybody with their national flags, and they're in their outfits, and the music's playing, and it just, as I'm coming in, I even get the march step. That's kind of how I find my tempo. I don't look at the number. I think opening ceremony. And top of the mountain I came up with right away. That just suggested itself, and after testing it a little bit, it really worked. I felt that in a flash, it was able to get me where I needed to be. Now this might seem, if you're worried about shifting and playing in tune and good sound and all that, it might seem like this is kind of extra, like icing on the cake, like maybe you shouldn't worry about that until you can play it perfectly. What I'm saying is that this is what is going to help you under pressure, when there's a little bit of stress, when that recording light is going on. This is the kind of thing that's going to focus a whole bunch of things together. And that's why I'm starting with that. It really changed my auditioning. And let's say that opening ceremony, I think it sounds cool, it's a cool concept, but I try it out, and we're going to get to exactly how I do that. I try it out, and my mind is just kind of unfocused. It's racing a little bit. That wasn't quite the word or the phrase or the image to do it, I guess. I'm going to have to come up with something else, something that really combines a few key thoughts. Now, let's say that coming into C, it's a technical thought that I really need to have. I've got to shift to fourth position. I've got to get over to the G string, right? Maybe it's that I need to remember to get my fourth finger all the way down before I change bow. Whatever it is, I still need, I don't want to just write, get 4 down. I can do better than that, I can come up with an image that's going to give me that thought and so much more. Maybe it's, as crazy as this sounds, stirring the pot. This is just a I came up with this. This wasn't mine, but I was trying to come up with one on the spot. What that means to me is, I'm in a cabin. I'm about to serve a meal to the family. And so I go over to the fire for one last stir before I bring it over. The reason why that applies here, I can kind of feel the spoon in my hand. It's like, I'm talking about a big pot on a fire. It's a big wooden spoon or ladle, right? Not some tiny thing. And I can feel it in my hand. I'm not stirring like that, right? There's some resistance in the pot. But it's warm. There are good smells. And so if I write that right while I'm still playing, stirring the pot, it's this kind of motion. Maybe it helps me to take a little extra time. There's no reason to rush that. Some of you are probably smiling or laughing right now, which is okay. Try this for yourself, and in fact, it is your first assignment. And I bet that when you get the right word, phrase, image for each of these sections is going to transform your performance, whether it's this slightly silly Violympic theme or, a concerto in front of a big audience, an audition. So just to recap the actual assignment, write down a keyword or thought for each rehearsal letter. As you test the different sections, and that basically just means, I'll tell you what it means. As you test the different sections, pause for a few seconds to internalize your keywords. If they set you up for success, you've got it. If not, consider changing them to something more helpful. So, here's what I do when I'm preparing an audition program. I've got my 16 excerpts or whatever. Here we've got however many, what do we have, 7 sections maybe? Me in the hats or the bowls. I cut up the different excerpt names. You could cut up the names of the different rehearsal letters, put them on paper, mix them up, put them in a bowl. You draw one out, and you bring to mind then the keyword or phrase. You'd need to remember what your keyword or phrase is for each one. Draw it out of the bowl or the hat, and then set it down. Keep your violin down here, close your eyes, and bring that keyword, phrase, image to mind. As soon as you feel centered and your mind is quiet in that place, then you bring the instrument up and you start it, whichever section it is. Give yourself all the time you need for that. Could be 10 seconds, could be a minute. Give yourself a minute. This practice of centering yourself is invaluable, not just for violin. Eventually, through repetition of this exercise, you can get that down to just a few seconds. Now, I know in the piece you're not going to have several seconds in between the different sections, but if you can get it down to a few seconds, it's going to be close enough to help you, in the heat of battle when you're chaining the sections together. So, it's a process. You come up with a keyword or image. You write the sections down on the paper, put them into a bowl. Test the sections and see if that word or phrase is going to work for you, and then try to get the time down. That's the first assignment. It's by far the most important one. Next, transitions. Test every transition. So that's the next logical step, right? If you've got each section working for you with a nice keyword or thought, then you need to be able to get from one to the other. So, I suggest, if I'm going to do the transition, for example, between D and E, rehearsal D and E. So for me, I'm finishing up the fingered octaves. Etc. So let's say that my keyword at E is keyword at E. I'm trying to come up with a new one that's not mine. I'm trying to come up with a fresh image. Let's call it Wake of the Boat. So if you imagine you're on a boat and you're looking behind the boat, you see the water parting on either side. So I'm not facing into the waves and the spray or anything. I'm relaxed, I'm looking back. We've got some speed, I can see the results of that, but I feel totally relaxed, and I'm just kind of in the airstream, basically. So for the section before, it would be, I want to keep my hand supple and light, so it's clearly going to be something like handful of cotton, or something like that. So before I do this transition from D to E, I look at the last bar of D, I'm thinking handful of cotton. I look at the first bar of E, I think wake of the boat. And then I blend those two images. I go from one image to the next, not one measure to the next. So here I won't actually move when I'm doing it for myself, but I'll do it for your benefit. So I've got my, and that transforms into wake of the boat. I do that a few times, and then I play one bar into the next. Just one bar, last bar, first bar. Could be a little under tempo if that's helpful, otherwise full tempo. And if that's working for me, great. This kind of practice is so valuable. If I need to tweak the keyword or phrase, I'll do that. If it is working for me, I'm going to expand now. Do 2 bars and 2 bars. So... Now here's a curious thing. Some of you may find that it's actually easier to start with the longer transition, 2 bars into 2 bars, and then gradually make it shorter, 1 bar into 1 bar, or even 2 beats into 2 beats. So it's start with whichever one is easier for you, and then go to the harder one. But you need to do that for every transition so that you've got them all covered. The next strategy, these are the sort of specialized strategies that you may or may not have tried in the past. We'll get into, general generic strategies after that because I don't want to neglect them. But, these may be things that you have not tried before. Note matching. To play the entire theme, listening for any notes that match in close proximity, within 1 beat, for example. I might have said actually within 1 bar too. Mark any pitch changes you need to rehearse. I use the word rehearse because I often like to think of practicing as if I'm, even if it's a solo piece, as if I'm part of a chamber music group and I'm rehearsing with other sympathetic people. In your life when you've put music together with other people, don't you feel that it's, I don't know, a little more supportive, like, yeah, we're all in this together. I may not get this thing in the concert, but, we rehearsed it, we gave it our best, team spirit, all that. Of course, I'm hoping we get the team spirit just by being together in the same group here. But even when you're in the room by yourself, practicing by yourself, think of rehearsing. There's a pitch that you need to play higher. You mark it as if you were accountable to the other people in the group for that. And if you don't get it, these other people understand. We're all human, right? They're not going to start yelling at you like you probably yell at yourself when you're by yourself. Why couldn't I play that higher? Why didn't I get that? You don't need to make excuses to the others in your group. You don't need to make excuses for yourself. You're rehearsing the changes. So, I've already got a D that needs to match that D. So I'm not going to be thinking of anything else in this play through the piece, and I won't play through the whole piece now, but in this practice technique, not going to be worried about anything else, only pitches that match. There's a G that needs to match too. Here there are so many notes, you may want to think about fingers. How about all the second fingers matching? Well, about all the third fingers? And how about that D with the one that I played a couple beats before? So, a lot of these you will have listened for already, just naturally. Some of them you may have missed, and so this is a great time to go back and pick up those ones that you've missed and mark them in. You know, put a little up arrow if you need to play one higher, down arrow if you need to play one lower. And then you can erase those marks if you've rehearsed and made the change. Don't forget about notes in different octaves too, right? So probably obvious, but even though we're not playing those notes together, they need to match. And of course that one needs to match the ones that I've just played. And that D needs to match the D I've just been playing. There are 100 different matches that you can find. As long as you find some changes that you had missed before, you're doing great work. Again, that detective, I used to hate it when my first Suzuki teacher, wonderful woman, Donna Weehee, I used to hate it when she would say this. Well, I used to hate it when she told me I was playing out of tune, which she would do fairly frequently. And then it would somehow make it worse when she would say, but don't you realize, you know, once you've found a note that you're playing out of tune, that's like going through a field and finding a gold coin in the grass. It's so valuable what you've just found. And I was like, ugh, you know, I'd rather find none. I don't want to find any notes that I'm playing out of tune. I don't want to play out of tune. Took me a while to discover that it doesn't work that way. You're always going to play out of tune, so much better to find it. Good. And your last assignment, before we talk about a couple general strategies, is to make a test recording. And the reason I want you to do that, now it doesn't have to sound the way you want your final recording to sound. So I don't want you to listen to your recording with a critical musical ear. I just want you to make sure that all your tech works. And remember, simplest is almost always the best. You know, I've got various gear in here. I've been doing this for years and years, and I do it, you know, almost every day. I'm out here making recordings for this, that, or the other. And if that describes you too, then use a whole bunch of gear. Have fun with it, you know, I do. But simplest is usually best, especially when you have other things to think about, like you're playing. The simplest is going to be your phone. Find some way to hold or support your phone, you know, so that someone's not hand holding it, and just make a video. And, you know, this is not about having professional sound quality, right? Not about having professional lighting, any of that. We just want something that works. And, you know, even though a phone is probably the simplest thing, there may be things you need to discover about your own phone. Maybe your phone turns off after 30 seconds if you're not pushing any buttons on it. And so maybe there's a setting you need to figure out that keeps it on until you manually turn it off. Maybe there are levels you need to set. Maybe you just need to find the place in your house where the lighting is nice or the sound is the best, or where you're not going to be interrupted by kids running through and all that. This all goes under this all goes into the test recording concept, because the next 2 days, Saturday, Sunday, or whenever you're making your recording, I don't want you to have to worry about all that. I want you to think back, yeah, I did my test here. I figured out the 2 things I need to change to make it work. Now I know, and I can, when I'm doing my real recording, I don't have to think about any of that. So, test recording, set it up just like you're going to do, play through the piece once, watch it only to make sure that it came out, and then you can go to bed or do the rest of your practicing or whatever. When you do your actual recording, tried and true technique is do 3 takes, pick your favorite. Do 5 takes, pick your favorite. If you do much more, this is the can of worms kind of thing, right? You're opening that can of worms. Because believe me, every single thing I've recorded in my life, whether it was audio only or video, I've wanted it better. I thought it wasn't quite ready. If I could have just had, this much more. So know that going in. Please know that going in, and know that when this is all done, you're going to watch that recording, you're going to listen to it, and you're going to think, ugh, this is just, why did I do this? This is bad. I feel like, now that I've done all this, now I know what the real problems are, and that's a good thing. There are some problems you can only uncover by going through a process like this, and that was one of my sneaky things for wanting you to do it. But the other thing that will happen is that a week later, 2 weeks later, you'll go back and you'll watch it and you'll say, actually that was pretty good. Look what I did in just a week. Like, actually, why did I think that sounded bad? That sounds pretty good. Know that going in too. So I can't encourage you enough. Do this recording. Do your test recording today. Do a real recording over the weekend. Even if you do 5 takes with a little break in between, it'll take you half an hour tops. You can pick your favorite one and then pour yourself a nice, we're going to have to come up with a signature cocktail for the Violympics, but pour one of those, whatever it is. If you have ideas for that, put them in the group. Good. Just a couple minutes on general strategies. The oldest strategy in the book, right, is playing everything slowly with the metronome and then gradually playing it faster. If that works for you, do it. It's worked for millions of people throughout history, and this is not that long a piece, and it may very well be a great strategy to just make sure that you got everything covered. It's not my favorite strategy in the world. I feel like I don't listen as carefully when I'm just sort of following the metronome and gradually getting things faster. What I would love to see you do instead is, as you're testing these different sections and finding your key words and phrases, just figure out which ones are the furthest from getting up to tempo. Spend more time on those. Don't worry if every section doesn't match tempo-wise exactly. I think all great artists change the pulse depending on the character and depending on the sound that they need. For example, that's a slower tempo than, right? If it still has the character you want, I think there's some leeway there to play that slower. And then if you decide to bump it back up, then that sounds more exciting, even though it may actually just match your tempo from the beginning. So don't worry if the numbers don't match up exactly the same. Just get stuff in the ballpark and start with the sections that are the furthest from being in tempo. And then what I would do is I would expand the sections that you play. Start feeling good about different sections, because undoubtedly some of them are going to feel better than others, right? So you're going to start your work after you do your assignments today. You're going to start your work with the sections that, sure, need the most help to get up to tempo. But then play the section that you feel the best about, the one that is no problem. And then see if you can expand that. Maybe if that's, let me get to a specific letter, like maybe A to B, the tune itself. Maybe that's the one that feels the best. If you're playing double stops from B to C, there may be one beat or one bar that bugs you, but don't let that, it's like the fly in the soup, right? Don't let that ruin the whole bowl. Don't let that ruin the whole section from B to C. See if you can say to yourself, actually B to C it's good, it's just this one bar, so I can't solve that problem today. I'll solve it next week. Or maybe I just won't solve it. This is not, appearing on my next audition. It doesn't matter if I play every beat of the Violympic theme perfectly. I feel good about B to C. So now you feel good about A to C. That's powerful. How about the 2 bars pick up into A? I bet you feel good about those too. So now we've expanded back there. Maybe that you can expand that all the way to the beginning. And yeah, I'm talking about talking yourself into it somewhat. That's what I do. You think I feel great about every note of every piece I play? Absolutely not. But I can't go on stage thinking like, all right, I'm about to play this piece. There are 5 parts of it that I don't like. Let me just concentrate on those. No, I walk out there thinking, I'm ready for this. And I've talked myself through the trouble spots in advance. I've done absolutely as much work as I feel like I can on those places. But I've expanded my comfort zone to include those spots that are going to be gone in a moment anyway. So, tried to keep the assignments today simple, tried to keep the strategies simple, because I don't want you to do too much today. I want you to mostly do the assignments. That's keywords and thoughts, transitions, and note matching. And I want you to make your test recording tonight. And not to listen to that test recording and mark a bunch of stuff. That's only to make sure it came out. I usually prefer to do all my takes in one day and just have them over with. If you want, you could do, let's say you're doing 5 takes total. You could do 3 on Saturday and another couple on Sunday and then pick your favorite and upload it. You could treat Saturday as just another work day, chance to repeat some of the assignments, to repeat today's assignments about putting it all together, and then do all your takes on Sunday. Or maybe you want to do 2 instead of 5 or 3. It's really up to you. Simpler is better, less is better. You want to get through this and celebrate. And speaking of celebration, that brings me to my reminder. We're going to celebrate Tuesday, the wrap party. That's the same time, 11 Pacific. We're going to go a little bit longer. It's going to be fun. I really want you all to be there. And the email that you'll get later today will have the link to that. You have to RSVP. You'll see the link to click, RSVP, register, whatever you call it. And it's going to be on Zoom. You've probably all used Zoom in the last couple months, unfortunately, but it's a solid platform, so join me there. I don't want you to miss it. I will announce the winner for the trials. I'm going to put together a fun presentation with some of the favorite things I've seen from the group. That's going to be, I'm going to have fun putting that together. Mostly it'll be a chance to look back at what you accomplished and how the kind of work that you did in this piece can really transform your playing going forward, whether I'm going to be a part of that or not. And of course, I'll give you the details about the Violympics that are going to start on June 1st and, how we can take this work in the Practice Makes Performance system, how we could take that forward, go a lot more in depth. So mostly it's going to be, it's a wrap party. It's bringing everything together. So it's going to be a lot of fun. Be there with me Tuesday, 11 Pacific. And good luck. I'm really rooting for you. I'm going to be in the group over the weekend. Kate will as well. We're going to be cheering you on. You can, if you feel like posting, sharing your video, that's great. All I require, if you want to score points for it, is that you upload it somewhere. YouTube, Unlisted videos are great for that because no one's going to see them unless you give them the link. So you don't have to share, just upload. And certainly if you feel like sharing in the group, that's a lot of fun, and I know that everyone else will take inspiration from anything you choose to share. So best of luck. Let's close this out strong, and come back with me Tuesday so we can wrap it all up. Thanks so much. Have a great weekend.